Jurassic Park, Jurassic World franchise now has its seventh film installment, and this is technically not a very good franchise. Obviously, the first Jurassic Park is iconic, it's a very good movie. One of Spielberg's best, honestly. But none of the sequels have really come up to par with that original. I think a lot of the Jurassic World films, especially kind of when they tried to do this sort of soft reboot, really have not landed the mark. There's a lot of okay to bad ranging in this franchise. But despite that, this was actually one of my more anticipated films of 2025. And the reason that is because they tapped director Gareth Edwards to tackle this film, and he's honestly probably one of my favorite directors working in the sci-fi genre right now. Great understanding of visual effects, all of his films look incredible, there's great cinematography in all of his movies, and he also has a great understanding and way of capturing scale in his movies. I think especially when you look at his 2014 Godzilla, the way he captured the scale of that monster is really incredible. He honestly just seems like a perfect fit for the Jurassic Park, Jurassic World franchise, and he's also very much so influenced by that original film. He's very influenced by Spielberg, and you do get a lot of Spielberg feel throughout this entire film. He is a producer, but I think Gareth Edwards does a great job of sort of honestly paying homage to what Spielberg did with that original film. Even some of his other films, like there's honestly a little bit of Indiana Jones that kind of creeps in here, which is really fun. And coming out of this, yes, this is a flawed film, especially on paper, despite David Koepp, the original writer, coming back to write this movie. But honestly, in the long run, I did kind of have a good time with this. I think it's a pretty solid movie, and compared to the rest of the Jurassic franchise, it's probably one of the better ones, and I think a big part of that is because of what Gareth Edwards does as a director here. So yeah, David Koepp returns. He wrote the original Jurassic Park, he's coming back, and this definitely feels like a stripping back to basics film compared to what the last Jurassic Park and World films have tried to do, where they really try to up the ante and kind of bring in these bigger new ideas, and a lot of them just did not work. So here we're definitely stripping it back to basics, and I think to a degree that does actually work here. But at the same time, a lot of it just feels so familiar. These characters especially are just very carbon copy. They're characters that we've seen in the Jurassic Park films, or just generic adventure films like this before. There's no one really that interesting, so it is actually very hard to kind of care about any of the characters in this movie. I think though what does help is that the cast is very good, so they make these characters very fun to watch, even though that on paper they're quite dull and bland. Scarlett Johansson's a very fun, actually. She does a great job. She always has in that sort of role, but she does a great job here. Mahershala Ali's a ton of fun, but for me, I think Jonathan Bailey was actually the big highlight. He's playing the more kind of science guy. He just kind of provides a lot of heart and levity to the film. One thing that I really did not like and thought was kind of unnecessary was the fact that we kind of just integrate this family, which some films tend to do, where it feels like they're just doing it to add empathy and add stakes because you're supposed to care about these people because they are a family, so they care for each other. But as an audience member, I didn't care for any of them, and they actually take up so much runtime, it's kind of crazy. And really the only thing that comes out of them are some good action sequences, so to a degree I respect it, but I just think that what they do with these characters is so boring, and the clear effort to add emotion and character development between these people, none of it lands, so it kind of feels like a waste of time when you're watching it. The story itself is a little bit all over the place. Like I said, it is definitely a back to basics film. It sort of does feel very similar to the first Jurassic Park, which to an extent has some flaws in it, but at the same time, I think because we are so used to, at this point with the Jurassic franchise, trying to expand all these ideas that just don't work, it did feel kind of refreshing, even though it is sort of a repeat of the past. But there's a lot of dumb choices in this film, especially with the characters and also just the way that certain things play out. Yes, they are kind of leading to these fun dinosaur action sequences, but a lot of stuff just really doesn't add up well. The ideas though are actually pretty interesting. For one, we are getting these kind of introduced monsters where their dinosaurs gone wrong, mutations have gone wrong to kind of create more interesting dinosaurs, and for that you get some really terrifying dinosaurs, which is really cool to see. And I think Gareth Edwards, especially with the visual choices he makes to capture these, does a very good job with that. For me, he was the highlight, Gareth Edwards, and what he does as a filmmaker in this movie. The cinematography is incredible. What he does with his cinematographer, shooting this on film for one, is just really cool to see that a big blockbuster is getting shot on 35mm, and you can definitely tell it looks great. All the colors really pop. There's definitely that grit and grain that you get with film that you don't get with digital. It's really nice to see. And because of that, this does kind of feel like an old school blockbuster that Spielberg would make, which is really cool. And then on top of that, just all the visual effects look great, all the dinosaurs look awesome, but I think the way that Edwards knows how to capture scale is really incredible. These things look huge and they look dangerous. The sound design that's kind of used with these creatures is really incredible. And there's a couple sequences where, even if it's not just dinosaur action where you're sort of supposed to be terrified the whole time, some of the more elegant sequences showcasing how massive these creatures are, the way that Edward shoots them is really incredible, and there's just some like genuinely breathtaking stuff. I honestly feel like coming out of this movie, one of my big reactions was that it's a shame that this is the movie that they gave Edwards to direct for the Jurassic franchise, because it's like he could have done so much more. And I also just wish that they actually gave us a more R-rated Jurassic Park film. Honestly, I thought for a while this is what that was supposed to be, but it's definitely not. It's still the more family-friendly idea, and I think there's some sequences here where it feels like Edwards is trying to go to that really dark and kind of horrific setting of like how terrifying these creatures are. And he sort of goes there, but then it feels like they cut away to make it that more family-friendly dynamic. And I honestly think this film would have worked a lot better if it just decided to go there. Like, we're at the 7th film in this franchise, why not just give us an R-rated one, or one that is very grisly, maybe really pushing that boundaries. So I would have liked it if this film actually pushed that boundary a little bit more, because it would have been a lot more shocking and made these creatures that are already pretty terrifying, especially with how Edward chooses to capture them, even more terrifying. But like I said, he just really knows how to capture this stuff, sci-fi in general and action. A lot of these action sequences are really gripping with the dinosaurs. They can be pretty terrifying, but they're still very fun at the same time, and everything just looks incredible. Like, all the visual effects work, all the scale that is done, which kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat. And again, it does a great job of setting you in the shoes of what these characters are going through, because he's just choosing to shoot them very well. And I think it's easy to overcome all the flaws that this film has, especially on paper, because he's choosing to kind of shoot these dinosaur sequences so very well, and they're so entertaining that you can kind of look past it. That's kind of the reaction that I had coming out of this film. So overall, Jurassic World Rebirth overcomes a pretty messy story that is a little bit familiar with some dull characters, because it's got a very strong cast, and Gareth Edwards does a great job as a director, great visuals throughout, and some great really fun dinosaur sequences. And that's why I'm going to give it a 7.3 out of 10.